Howdy, gang, and welcome once again to the Duct Tape Studios. I'm Jeff McAleer, your host here at the Gaming Gang channel. Thanks for joining me once again. Before I get into today's review, just a reminder, if you would like to support the Gaming Gang, we do have a Patreon. You'll find the link to that in the show notes. And if you'd like to hang with the gang over on Discord, we now have a Discord server. You'll find the invite link also in the show notes. So today I am going to share my review of Hudson Brand Inquiry Agents of the Obscure from Stygian Fox. This 164-page hardcover with PDF is available over at DriveThruRPG for $59.95. You can grab just the PDF alone for $19.95. Having said all that, let's swing on over to the other camera because here I've got Hudson Brand Inquiry Agents of the Obscure. A few things to mention before we dive on in. First of all, the fine folks over at Stygian Fox were kind enough to provide me with this review copy, but neither I nor anyone else affiliated with the Gaming Gang has received any other sort of compensation for me to share this review with you. It's important you know that. We're also not going to look at each and every page of the book, but I do want to give you a really good feel for what you're going to find inside. And then lastly, there are a couple of short adventures contained within. So if you're a player and your keeper has picked up Hudson Brand and maybe they just haven't introduced the setting to your game yet, just letting you know, might stumble across some spoilers here. So you have been warned. Of course, if your keeper has been thinking about picking this up, let them know about this review. That way they can make a far more informed buying decision. All right, first thing we're going to do is take a peek at the credits page. A lot of folks work very hard to bring this to life. Let's give credit where credit is due. So Hudson Brand is a setting book for Call of Cthulhu. And of course, it is set within the Victorian era. This is the Gaslight Era. And when this originally came out in 2017, this was nominated for an ENnie. So pretty interesting there. So we're going to start off, we're going to get a few pages devoted to the era. Although reality is, I'm kind of surprised we didn't get more devoted to it. There's only about 7 pages or so. And you got to keep in mind when this first arrived on the scene, Call of Cthulhu did not have the 2-volume Cthulhu by Gaslight. That just recently came out. So that's why I'm kind of surprised we only got a few pages devoted to the era in London. We'll also get almost 30 pages devoted to the cases of the agency, Hudson Brand. And of course, we have these gentlemen are essentially consulting detectives. One is a former military officer. The other is a former journalist. And we'll get a breakdown of all of their cases throughout the early years of the agency, the prime years of the agency, and then the later years. I will say I could have used fewer pages devoted to the various different cases that they took on. Although it's really interesting, a lot of interesting reading. Much of it, though, isn't really going to come into play at your game table for the most part. Although I could see using some of that for some inspiration for further adventures for your players. But still, I think 15, maybe 20 pages would have been fine. This just feels like it's a little bit padded out. Then we're going to have the actual location, the safe house where the agency is located. And your players are not taking on the roles of Hudson Brand because Hudson Brand have disappeared and they are assumed to be dead. And one of the player characters will have inherited this location and probably going to take over the agency as well. If they're not going to take over the agency, you're not going to have much adventuring going on. So I'm going to assume they will alongside with the other players. So we're going to get a couple of cases. Both of these do tie in to the previous cases that Hudson Brand investigated. So I do like that. I thought that was pretty cool. We also find out pretty much what's going on as far as the disappearance here. The artwork throughout is very solid. Some is really good. Other images are sort of, And then, of course, we've got some public domain images as well. So this is our second adventure, Ophelia Rising, which once again, like I said, also ties into the previous cases. I really love the layouts here. Really, really nicely done as far as the various different location maps. Like that a ton. Next up, we'll have a chapter that's going to feature various different stat blocks for NPCs that the player characters can encounter, as well as various different agencies they might work with. We've got stats for weapons of the period, very nicely done. And then we'll also have artifacts and curios. Now we'll wrap up the book, and this is over 60 pages where we're going to get the map of London broken up into a lot of different pages. I got to say, I'm taking a guess that this is a public domain map from the period. We also get an example of a Victorian era newspaper. And then we will have a bunch of pre-generated characters. These are adversaries. They are also allies. Strangely enough, we get duplicates. I guess one if you use them as an ally, one if you use them as an adversary, but I didn't study these intently, but they look to be identical. So I don't know why we've got two copies. Got to be honest, the last 60 pages or so outside of the character sheets that are blank just seems to be filler here, just kind of taking up space. I was kind of surprised by that. So we're going to wrap up with a couple of copies of the Hudson and Brand era character sheets, and then some kudos to the various Kickstarter backers. And that is a peek inside Hudson and Brand Inquiry Agents of the Obscure. Let's swing on over to the other camera so I can share some final thoughts as well as my review score. So let's tackle the things I'm not too keen about with Hudson and Brand Inquiry Agents of the Obscure. And first of all, it's the 60 pages of nothing. I mean, I got to be honest, you could have just shared a link of a PDF for that London map. That'd have been fine. Do the same with that example of a London newspaper. I can't tell you if that's a real London newspaper from the era or if it's just a creation. But still, I think all of that page space being occupied by that, you're never going to use them, right? So I was really surprised to find that just kind of padding out the book. And I even reached out to one of the creators over on Stygian Fox and mentioned, I understand they're bouncing around doing a second edition of Hudson and Brand. If they do that, maybe don't include the ephemera that it's notated at the back of the book. Also, maybe trim down a little bit of the case histories because a vast majority of that is not going to be utilized at the game table. So there we've got the stuff that I'm not super keen on, but the actual gameable material in here is awesome. It is excellent and well worth picking up. I can easily see why this was nominated for an ENnie. It's just the review score is going to be dragged down by that additional filler because in all honesty, I think this book should clock in at about 90 pages or so, not 164. Just my opinion, though. I'm just telling you what I think. But I certainly do recommend Hudson and Brand Inquiry Agents of the Obscure because the adventures are really nicely done. The actual layout of the safe house and the agency, the information about that is top notch. I really love the gameable material. I just wish there was more of it in Hudson and Brand. So on a scale of 0 to 10, I give Hudson and Brand Inquiry Agents of the Obscure a 7 out of 10. You might be surprised by the score being as high as it is, but the gameable content is excellent. It is top notch. Like I said, I wish there was more of it. All right, that's it for this time out. If you like the video, by all means, please give it a quick thumbs up. Subscribe to the Gaming Gang channel if you haven't already. And if you do subscribe, don't forget, ring that bell. It'll not only let you know when I share videos such as this review, it'll also inform you when my live stream, the Gaming Gang Dispatch, airs Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday evenings right here on YouTube at 7 p.m. Central. Of course, when you're not watching videos on the Gaming Gang channel, be sure to visit thegaminggang.com for all latest in tabletop gaming news, reviews, and a whole lot more you will not find on YouTube. You know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. Thank you very much for watching. Once again, I'm Jeff McAleer, and until I see you next time, I certainly hope all of you get to enjoy plenty of great gaming with your gang.